Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, we're all concerned, at least we should be, what's going on in Israel and what is the Americans' response to what's happening and really what's it all about. And it has escalated. Well, we always honor greatly the time that we have with David Rubin. David is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and he's also, which is in the regional area of Samaria. He's also the gentleman behind the Shiloh Israel's Children's Fund. And by the way, let me give you a couple of websites now in case you want to correspond with him. DavidRubinIsrael.com, or you can go to the ShilohIsraelChildren.org and get his books and keep up with him and communicate with him that way. And David, you just returned to Israel. Nice to see you, my friend. How you doing?
Oh, thank you, Perry. Well, all I could say is thank God that I'm back in Israel. But I have to tell you, there's a lot going on here right now. As I was getting off the plane to set foot in Ben Gurion International Airport in Israel, the sirens went off, indicating that there are rockets being fired in the area not too far from the airport. So everyone had to quickly go for cover, and we were not allowed to get off the plane right away until they were sure that the coast was clear and that we could go to where they wanted us to go.
Unbelievable. I don't know if we understand living in those kind of conditions, and especially in these modern times. It's just mind-boggling to me what you have to live with over there. David, help us to get our head around it. What happened that accelerated the conflict to this level? What happened? What brought it to this point?
Well, it's actually quite simple if one looks at the situation objectively. The Hamas terrorist organization has been firing rockets at Israel intermittently, sometimes heavily, sometimes lightly, sometimes not at all. But they've been doing it for, I would say, about 9 years now, and they aim intentionally at civilians, only at civilian areas, not at military targets. And this is the way they work. And they instill fear in people, and so what happens? Eventually, Israel reaches the point where it has to do something about it, and that's pretty much what happened here. And the fact that the 3 teenage boys were kidnapped and murdered just a few weeks ago certainly added a little impetus to this process. But the fact is, at some point, Israel needs to really take the offensive if we are to win this war. Otherwise, we're going to be going through this every 2 years or so.
What's been the reaction by Israeli citizens with Netanyahu's action here?
Well, it depends on which action we're talking about.
Well, the conflict that's retaliating with those rockets coming in from Hamas.
Well, unfortunately, you don't win a war by retaliating.
Right.
You win a war by taking the offensive. It's just like it's just kind of a dangerous game of sports, and that's what's going on here. We have a very dangerous game of sports, in which you have to take the offensive if you want to win. Anyone who's played basketball or any other sport knows that. So you have to take the offensive. Up to this point, we have not taken the offensive. We've been retaliating. We've been letting them determine the rules of the game. And strategically, that just doesn't work. It's only when Israel sends in the ground troops that we're truly going to be able to clear out those weapon smuggling tunnels and bomb factories that the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad terrorists have planted underground. You can't get to that. You can't destroy that with just air attacks. Air attacks can help to protect the ground troops, but the air attacks are not going to win a war in and of themselves.
Okay, so are the citizens behind the Prime Minister?
Oh, the citizens are in favor. Majority of citizens are in favor of a ground offensive. Up to this point, that hasn't happened.
Wow. All right. There was an offer for a ceasefire, and it was rejected. And I guess the attacks now have accelerated. What's next?
Well, the ceasefire was proposed, coordinated between Egypt and the United States and the UN and the EU and all these countries. The ceasefire is a farce. The only purpose of the ceasefire was to stop Israel from winning, and the Israeli cabinet, interestingly, agreed to the ceasefire, partially because we're hypersensitive, oversensitive to what the world will say if Israel takes the offensive. What we need to be doing is taking the offensive. The Hamas refused the ceasefire. Now we need to be taking the offensive. I call on Israel's prime minister, and by the way, I call on him to do this in my articles on IsraelNationalNews.com. And over and over, I call on him to fight to win. This time, I say fight to win. I wrote an article called "This Time, Fight to Win." That's what Israel needs to be doing right now, is fighting to win, taking the offensive, air attacks, ground offensive, destroy those bomb smuggling tunnels, destroy those weapon smuggling tunnels, and take away the weapons from those terrorists. It's absolutely a tragedy and a scandal that they have been allowed to retain these weapons up to this point.
It's been said Israeli intelligence is the best in the world, so you obviously know where those tunnels are. You obviously know where those weapons are being hidden, and yet some of the terrorists themselves will run the mosque or even the schools to hide. How in the world do you select where you're going to attack?
Well, you just said it yourself. If you have excellent intelligence, then for the most part you're going to know where the weapons are and where the military targets are. We do know the military is all prepared for this. The military has been training for a long time, and we just hope and pray that the politicians will not grab at defeat as opposed to victory. We have an opportunity to fight in the spirit of Joshua and to win this war, and we just need to do it.
All right. So what I'm hearing you say is, all right, a offer for peace is really a farce. Let's go in now and stay in there until the mission's accomplished.
Absolutely. You make peace with those who want peace. As many of your listeners and many of your viewers know, I wrote a book, my most recent book, which is called Peace for Peace, Israel in the New Middle East.
Right.
Okay, Peace for Peace means that if they really want peace, they could have had it yesterday. The fact is that they don't really want peace. They want to destroy Israel. They want to have an Israel-free Middle East. In fact, a Middle East that's free of all non-Muslims. That's what they want. That's what Hamas wants. That's what Islamic Jihad wants. I read what they have to say. I know what they say in Arabic, and I don't have any illusions. It's very clear. So if this is what they really want, if they really want war, well, we should be giving it to them. But giving it to them 10 times as hard as what they're giving to us.
Clearly, you outnumber them.
No, we don't. We don't outnumber them, but we do outnumber them in terms of military intelligence and technology, and know-how. And I'll just add one more thing. We have the God of Israel on our side. So you put all of those things together, and it's very clear that this should be a no-brainer. We should be able to wipe them out, and wipe them out very quickly. The question is whether our politicians will have the willpower and have the spiritual backbone to go forward and do it.
Interesting. All right, let me take a break here, Dave. When we come back, I want you to comment also on the world's response to what you're doing. The world is saying, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, and then turns around and complains when you do it. And then I also want you to comment on what, if anything, the U.S. is doing in your support. We'll be right back with David Rubin.
Hi, I'm Paulina and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay, we're back, and our special guest today is our good friend David Rubin. We're Skyping him in live from Israel today. He's the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and he's also the founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, author of quite a few books, and several that I and highly recommend that you read. Peace for Peace, The Islamic Tsunami. And by the way, you can get a hold of these by going to davidrubinisrael.com, or you can go to shilohisraelchildren.org. And David, before we run out of time, tell us about the Shiloh Israel Fund. What is that?
Yes, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund is what I started, an organization that I started several years back after a terrible terrorist attack when my 3-year-old son and I were wounded. And we miraculously survived that attack. The bullet that went into my son's head and through his neck missed his brainstem by 1 millimeter. I was shot in the leg, and we managed to get away from the terrorists. But the fact is that there is a lot of trauma connected with this terrorism. It's not just the actual physical wounds that children and their parents suffer from, but it's also the psychological trauma of terrorism. So I started the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund for the purpose of healing the trauma of the terror victim children and rebuilding the biblical heartland of Israel through those children. So we have therapeutic programs using art and music and animals, a petting zoo, a horse farm, and all of these tools, these updated methods are used to heal the trauma of terrorism, to rebuild the biblical heartland through those children. I encourage everyone to go to that website, to Shiloh, that's spelled S-H-I-L-O-H, israelchildren.org, shilohisraelchildren.org. They can find out more about it. They can donate online, and a lot of people do.
Yeah, please do. And I don't think we understand for a moment the trauma that young children are going through there in Israel, not knowing when the bomb is going to come or the missile or where it's going to hit. You got literally seconds from the siren to the impact, right?
That's right. That's right. And we're going to bomb shelters all the time. The fact is that children here suffer from all the same traumas that children suffer from around the world, plus the trauma of terrorism, the trauma of the threat of terrorism, the trauma of war, the trauma of the threat of war, and the trauma of misguided politicians talking about giving away your home. All of these things cause trauma in children, and it's irresponsible for us to ignore it. So we try to heal it, and we try to help them, and we do that with the help of people around the world, like many of your listeners, many of your viewers.
Again, it's shilohisraelchildren.org. All right, David, back to the situation. A lot around the world will say, well, Israel has a right to defend herself. And when you do, you're criticized for it. I want you to comment on that. In addition, how's the media, from your perspective, treating you around the world? And what's happening with America getting involved in your conflict?
Yeah, well, I always, when I hear that statement, that paradox, it makes me smile, but it's not a happy smile. The fact is that the nations of the world, including the Obama administration, want to say that Israel has the right to defend itself, and we stand with Israel and its right to defend itself. And then they pressure us to have a ceasefire just when we're getting the upper hand. It's absolutely unfair. It's absolutely immoral for people to make these blank, meaningless statements that Israel has a right to defend itself, and then to pressure us not to defend ourselves. And that's what we see happening today. It's not just the UN, it's not just the EU, it is also the United States and the Obama administration that is putting on that pressure on Israel, that Israel should not launch the ground offensive. I think sometimes we need to just ignore, yes, explain. You know, that's another article that I wrote recently, and anyone can Google it if they want to understand what I mean by this. I wrote an article called Explain and Ignore. And that's what we need to do. We need to explain why we're doing what we're doing, but also ignore the pressure on Israel to agree to an unjustified and immoral ceasefire.
You know, what's so interesting about this, I think at least from the faith community in many areas of the United States, obviously you have their support, but you probably don't see it because we turned around and elected this president twice who certainly doesn't have your back. But on the other hand, you are certainly leading the way on how you handle terrorism. We don't get it. We just don't get it.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of the Israeli leaders don't seem to understand it. You know, and I think you said the important word before, the important term before, which was faith-based community, and there are many faith-based people in Israel who do get it, who really understand why we need to go forward and fight to win. You know, it is time to fight to win. And if anybody wants to read more about that, they could just go to Google and just type in "this time fight to win," and that's the article that I wrote about this, and I stated very clearly, and I'm sure that many of your viewers would understand what I'm talking about, and then we all just have to continue to urge Israel's leaders to act with that strength, of will, and to win the battle this time.
David, this is kind of a little bit off the wall question, but I'm sure you have been kept up with the many books, articles, and even sermons in America over the 4 blood moons and how they relate to Israel's past and perhaps maybe even its future. And some will say that your current conflict is to build up to the 2nd blood moon, which is in September. Do you guys, and you personally, do you plug that into your thinking at all?
Well, no, not really. I'm familiar with it, and I think that Christians view prophecy a little bit different than Jews. Yes, we do also look at the end time scenarios, but the fact is that Jews do not do all these calculations as much as Christians do, saying, well, because the blood moon is coming at this particular time, this is going to happen, and nations are going to do this, and nations are going to do that. We're too busy living it. We're right in the center of the conflict, and yes, we believe in prophecy, or at least I believe in prophecy, and how things are going to play out. We see the general trends, but we're too busy living our lives right now and living in the midst of that prophecy to start doing all sorts of calculations. I mean, we really don't have time for that.
All right. Now, of course, it sells a lot of books in America, as you know.
I'm well aware of that. And I'm familiar with a couple of the people who write the books, and I do know them personally, some of them. But, you know, that's not the issue here. The real issue is, what do we need to be doing in these times in order to follow God's guidelines and follow the guidelines that are going to bring us real peace and a lasting peace.
All right. Now, as you continue into this conflict against Hamas there and the Islamics there in that area, and you're saying go in to win, so let's go in, complete the job. At the same time, do you sense a threat from Syria, Egypt, Lebanon, looking over their shoulders and saying, we got your back if this thing goes too far?
Well, they're always a threat to us. You have to remember, we're a little country about the size of New Jersey. We're surrounded by enemies. and these enemies want to destroy us. We don't have any illusions about that. Maybe Egypt is a little bit better than Lebanon or Syria right now, a little bit more stable at the moment. But we're aware of what's going on all around us, and we need to be strong and to do what we need to do, not to be too concerned about our enemies, and the various enemies that surround us. But we have to be prepared for every eventuality, even a multiple front war, which could happen at some point.
The conflict also with the ISIS and others there in Iraq, it seems that among the Muslims that there is conflict and civil strife and maybe even civil war. Do you think in time that will find its way to, I mean, there will be a winner in their own civil war? I mean, they can't even get along among themselves, let alone concentrate on taking you out.
I don't think that we or the United States or any other countries who believe in freedom should be wasting our time supporting either the Shiite Muslims or the Sunni Muslims. Let them fight their civil war. In fact, encourage them to fight their civil war. If the Shiites are winning, well, help out the Sunnis a little bit. If the Sunnis are winning, help out the Shiites a little bit. Let's keep that civil war going. It's a good thing. I want my enemy fighting my enemy. The only people in the whole country of Iraq, if we could still call it a country, that are in the least positive are the Kurds. Mm-hmm. And those are the people who should be getting passive support from the free world, to encourage them to assert their autonomy and even perhaps give them an independent country. But the Shiites and Sunnis both want to destroy Israel and the United States and all of Judeo-Christian civilization, and there is no reason to be giving either of those two groups any kind of support.
I agree with that. So what's next, David? Where are you? I mean, do you think the current administration there in Israel has the fortitude to go in and win?
Well, they need to be encouraged to do so. They voted for the ceasefire, which I think was a terrible mistake. But you know what we say in biblical terms. God can just, he's up there and handling us like marionettes. He pulls a string, and he can harden Pharaoh's heart, and he can harden the heart of the Hamas. And so we agreed to the ceasefire, and then the Hamas rejected the ceasefire because we're not supposed to have a ceasefire right now. So Israel has another opportunity now to go forward with the ground offensive, coupling that with the air attacks. And hopefully we'll start doing some serious activity here that will clean out those nests of hatred in Gaza and will bring some victory for Israel.
Well, David, you're in our prayers. Thank you, friend. We value greatly our relationship with you and the time that you give us to keep us updated. I want to encourage our viewers and listeners, check it out, davidrubinisrael.com or shilohisraelchildren.org. Check out his books, Peace for Peace, The Islamic Tsunami. Check out his articles. Where's the best place to read your articles?
Oh, you can just go to israelnationalnews.com. israelnationalnews.com. Just scroll down a little bit and you will see my face there, and all of you just click on the picture and you get all the articles.
What's been the response from your countrymen on your writings, on your articles?
Very positive. The only problem is the real person who I want to be reading the articles, I don't know if he reads them, and that's the Prime Minister. And the Defense Minister wouldn't understand it because his English isn't so great, but the Prime Minister is the one who really should be reading the articles, and maybe some people will start sending it to him, and he'll start to pay attention.
All right. Thank you, my friend. God bless you. You're in our prayers, and let's stay in touch, okay?
Thank you, certainly.
Thank you, David. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Well, I am delighted to have back with us today Dr. Lawrence Gelman. We've had him on before, and I have a copy of his book, and I started reading it, and I go, whoa, this man has really done his homework. He's the author of a book called The Fall from Grace. He is a South Texas-based physician, hospital administrator. He's a conservative activist, media personality. He has his own show, the Dr. Lawrence Gelman Show. And today we want to get into some areas in this book. His website, if you want to check him out, is talkbackonline.com. talkbackonline.com. So a good way to communicate with him and to get a copy of the book. We had a picture of it there on the screen. It's a big book. Boy, I don't know where he found the time being a doctor and to write this book at the same time, but he's done a wonderful job. Dr. Gelman, nice to see you, my friend. How are you doing today?
Fine. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, great. Listen, this is fascinating. By the way, for those who are seeing you and hearing you for the first time, what made you take this book on? What made you write it?
I was doing a radio program, and I would discuss these issues, and so I would prepare the different segments, and I accumulated a number of them together, and enough. They just kept expanding us.
Okay, we're having just a little bit of a technical problem with them. Let me do this. We're going to try to see if we can reconnect with them and get them back here. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of a Skype problem. And we'll get him here in just a moment and get that straightened out. Let me let you know that the book is entitled, it's big. This is a tremendous resource called The Fall from Grace, Lawrence Gelman, MD. It's self-published, and you may want to check it out at his website, talkbackonline.com, and you can get a copy of the book today. And so we apologize for that little bit of an interruption. I think we have you back, Dr. Gelman. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Let's move on. There is an article today, WND has put it out, maybe you have seen it, that the Democrats now are pushing for an unrestricted abortion bill in the Senate. In fact, it's called the Anti-Hobby Lobby Bill. And basically what they're saying and they're pushing for, they think this is going to be a campaign issue for them. It's Senate Bill 1696 that basically says no restrictions on any abortion whatsoever, and our tax dollars will pay for it. This is clearly the Anti-Hobby Lobby Bill. Now, you write in your book, The Right to Murder the Innocent, Roe versus Wade, 1973. Do you think Roe versus Wade will ever be addressed again in a meaningful way in the court system?
I don't know, but I think it's important. It will be if the American people actually read the decision. The problem with the way this is all presented is that people look at the Roe v. Wade as something that's a permanent fixture, and everything is based against the title Roe v. Wade without anyone actually reading the decision. I think the key is for the American people to be educated in the Roe v. Wade decision itself. That's critical because the decision is nonsensical, both at the level of science and constitutionality. And we can go into that in greater depth.
Yeah, I'd like to have you do that because in your chapter, you're saying that it's junk law and junk science, and therefore it should have never made it to the Supreme Court level.
That's exactly correct. Of course, the Supreme Court has no authority over such issues to begin with, but I guess that's going to be another program. You know, when I was a medical student, I really was kind of neutral on the issue. I kind of bought into the, live and let live. whatever you want to do, whatever. I was opposed to it personally, but if that's what you wanted to do, that was fine. But, you know, I'd always hear this statement that that abortion, and we need to start using terminology correctly. The term abortion in this issue is really wrong. It should be the abortion of the life of the undelivered infant. There's all kinds of definition changes which we need to do in order to make people understand. One is that born is not delivery. Born is the moment of conception. And we need to start looking at things scientifically properly. And so when they were saying that the infant is part of the mother, I knew as a physician that's nonsense. The infant is no more part of the mother than you and I are part of our mothers today. What's part of the mother has the mother's same genetic makeup. The baby has an independent genetic, in utero has an independent genetic makeup. It is not part of the mother. The mother's organs are there at birth, at delivery. When the mother's delivered, when the mother is born, technically everything is already there, at least genetically. When the mother is delivered, the woman is delivered, she has all her organs, okay? An infant in the uterus is not one of those organs. Every organ of the mother, every cell in the body, every blood cell, every red and white cell, every cell of the kidney, the liver, the brain, has the same genetic structure of the mother. The baby's genetic structure is different. The baby is not and never was part of the mother. In fact, if the circulation of the baby mixes with the circulation of the mother, that is a potentially lethal situation. So even their circulations are completely separate. Their blood types are separate. And so that is just one. So I knew that if this is an argument, if this is a linchpin argument by the pro-choice movement, that the baby's part of the mother and therefore the mother has the right to do with the baby as she pleases, I knew that was a lie. And if one of your arguments is a lie, maybe your other arguments are a lie. Now, we or I cannot prove life is sacred. I would like to be able to do that, but I can't. We hope that's true, but we can't prove it. However, what we can show is that every argument used by the pro-choice lobby, and I don't mean 90%, I mean 100% of their arguments are lies. And so our point of view, but if we can disprove their point of view, we can still win the argument.
All right.
And so, yes.
Well, excuse me. This is powerful. Do your colleagues in medicine get what you just said?
Some do, some don't. Unfortunately, to show you how things are, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology term abortions and submitted an opinion to the Supreme Court when they were deciding the constitutionality of late-term abortions. They submitted an opinion that it should be permitted. So clearly, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology is much more similar to the physicians in Nazi Germany than they are to our founding principles.
All right. One other quick question along these lines before I take a break. Why is it always then said it's women's health? Why is it a women's health issue?
It's not a women's health pregnancy in which the mother, that's very commonly known. The solution to, if it's due directly to the presidency and the pregnancy needs to be terminated because of a health issue with the mother, you only have to end the pregnancy. You don't have to kill the undelivered infant. It's the pregnancy, not the infant, that's causing the problem. Therefore, by terminating the pregnancy, which we do all the time, we do premature termination of pregnancy, both for issues of mother's health and infant's health. And you do a premature termination of pregnancy, which is perfectly legitimate, and you deliver the baby, a viable baby, and the baby is not killed. So there are no health issues. There are no health issues in the woman that require the intentional killing of the undelivered infant.
Wow.
There are instances, the infant may die because of extreme prematurity, but that allow nature to take its course. But the intentional killing of the undelivered infant in the name of mother's health is a lie, is scientifically false, and is just it is the biggest lie that is presented by the pro-choice movement.
All right, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back. Dr. Lawrence Gelman's with us today. The book is entitled The Fall from Grace. You may want to check it out by going to his website, and that's talkbackonline.com. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and our special guest today is Dr. Lawrence Gelman. He's the author of this incredible book called The Fall from Grace, and you can check it out at his website, talkbackonline.com. It's a very comprehensive book about a lot of things, and I think one of the things he covers in the book that's also very fascinating is when and how did the U.S. Supreme Court usurp control of the Constitution. That's probably a four-segment show on itself, but it does relate to a little bit what's going on here as we're talking about Roe versus Wade, which is one of the chapters in his book there towards the end of the book. Dr. Gelman, we saw this come back to forefront again with the Hobby Lobby decision by the Supreme Court. In the meantime, as I mentioned earlier, the U.S. Senate now is proposing a bill. It's called the Anti-Hobby Lobby Bill. What's your take on the Supreme Court decision?
The Supreme Court has no authority to be involved in such decisions, and I think once we accept the fact that they do have that authority, we've lost. Because even if the decision appears to go in our favor, which is the constitutional view, if we accept that as legitimate, then we have to accept the other decisions which go against us as well. So I prefer not to. I did read the decision, as I always do, and it's, even though it went in our favor, supposedly, it's still nonsensical, because basically what the court says is that your rights stop when the government says so. In the very first paragraph written by the justice, it says that everything is okay unless it's against a compelling government interest.
Wow. Wow. Okay, we apologize for this, folks. We got a little bit of a Skype problem with.
Therefore, they just make things up, so it's not legitimate. But what I would like to do is I want to look at the pillar of this entire movement, which is the Roe v. Wade decision, and I'd like to point out a few things in the decision, of the many things which show you the absurdity of the decision.
Go for it.
For one thing, they say that there's a right to privacy in the Constitution, and that allows the mother to kill the undelivered infant because it's her private affair. There is no right to privacy in the Constitution. The Constitution says that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, places, houses, and effects against unreasonable searches shall not be violated. And no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the people or things to be seized. There is no right to privacy. Clearly, if there was a right to privacy, that would allow murder done in an individual's home to be isolated from the law. So there is no right to privacy, which is a linchpin of the Roe v. Wade decision. Also, in the Roe v. Wade decision, it says that the undelivered, that the in utero infant is not a person. It says that, and so. If you then what is the undelivered infant? What is the baby in utero if not a person? So the Supreme Court says that the in utero infant is not a person. Why does it say that? Because the Fifth Amendment guarantees the right of due process to every American, to every person. And so therefore, that would require that before you can kill an undelivered infant, that infant has the right to due process. In order to avoid the right to due process, which would mean that the baby would have someone to defend the baby, their own attorney before a court to defend the baby, in order to avoid that, you have to say that the baby is not a person. Who believes that? They also say that they also create a definition of abortion, which is not a true definition. The definition of abortion created by the Supreme Court says the abortion is with the abortion in this instance is the termination of pregnancy with something other than a viable birth. That's not what abortion means. Abortion means the termination of something before the ending of something before termination or maturity. You can prematurely or abort pregnancy by premature termination of pregnancy without necessarily killing the in utero infant. What they're doing is they're combining the termination of pregnancy and the termination of life and combining that into one definition. That is not legitimate. The other things that they do is they classify an infant differently based on the trimester, as if a 13-week gestation is different than a sense. What mother, what human being will actually believe that an infant at 13 weeks gestation is somehow intrinsically different than an infant at 14 weeks gestation, or that an infant at 13 weeks gestation is different than the newly delivered infant? But this is the kind of nonsense that is the entire Roe v. Wade decision. They go back and they look at Aristotelian philosophy. They even make this. They make some ridiculous statements that says that conception. Get this. They say conception is not an event, but a process. And can you believe that? This is what is the nonsense that is in the Roe v. Wade decision. And there's a lot more of it if we had the time to do it. But what I'm saying is that the entire decision is a lie, it's unconstitutional, and scientifically false. And this is the basis of everything that the government does. This is a non-legitimate government. The Senate bill you're talking about is completely unconstitutional. These people are Nazis. And that's what we need to realize, that this that the pro of Nazis, it is the same philosophy, the exact same philosophy. The only difference is that our government and half of our population says that the in utero infant is a non-entity and has no rights. That's exactly what the Nazis said about the Jews in Germany. They passed a law. It was a law. It wasn't an edict. They passed a law that said that the Jew is a non-entity. The German Jew is a non-entity in Germany. And it's exactly the same way of thinking. It's the same way of thinking. So they're saying that the in utero infant is not a person, is not worthy of rights. It is not worthy of that the life of the in utero infant is going to be dependent upon the mother, as if the mother owns, as if the mother can kill simply because it's her child. Well, if the mother can kill the infant because it's her child and she's taking care of it, then in utero, then there's no reason to say that the mother cannot kill. Identical. They're killing the infant because of convenience of the mother. Well, if your teenager is inconvenient, go ahead and kill your teenager. So, I mean, that's the same logic. So, this decision, Roe v. Wade decision, is scientifically untenable. Okay, untenable. The baby's not part, the infant is not part of the mother, and is constitutionally a lie because the infant is a person and has the right to due process. Furthermore, there is no right to privacy, and every other thing that is in this decision is complete nonsense, including the making up of definitions like abortion and what defines a person.
Wow, that's powerful, Dr. Gelman. Thank you for sharing that. And by the way, a lot of that is covered in his book that we're talking about here today. And you can get a copy of that, The Fall from Grace, at talkbackonline.com. Dr. Gelman, I'm very short on time now, but I'm going to ask you a tough question. Your colleagues who go through medical school, do all the training, do all of this, what is it in a doctor that they can kill a baby even at 9 months? What happens in the mind and the heart of another human being that they could pull that baby out of the womb and kill it?
In the 1920s and 30s, it was widely considered true that the greatest doctors in the world were in Germany. Yet what happened to them that allowed them to do experiments on human beings, to do abortions, to kill, even though they are members of the medical profession? There is nothing different about a doctor as far as their humanity, as far as their psychology, as to anyone else. If you're brought up to believe that the in utero infant is not a person, that the mother has the right of life or death over her child, and you just accept it. The doctor is not a moral individual, okay? The doctor is a technician, okay? We're supposed to be upholding life, but the Hippocratic Oath was also administered to the doctors in Germany. The doctors in Germany were brought up exactly the same way. The doctors in the Soviet Union that incarcerated dissidents in psychiatric hospitals and gave them drugs in order so that they were brain numbed or whatever. I mean, those are also physicians. So let's not look at physicians as somehow being of a higher moral persuasion. Like I say, the very fact that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, which is the profession of delivering babies and taking care of babies and their mothers, comes out in support of late-term abortion. I mean, come on. So let's.
Okay, we apologize. We've had some Skype problems and connections, and I apologize for that. And I send my best to Dr. Gelman. And again, I encourage you. You may want to check out his book. You can tell that he's a very comprehensive thinker. And there's several chapters of the book that deals with the U.S. Supreme Court usurping control over the Constitution. Some people will ask the big question, how in the world did America get to where it is and so far from where it was? Well, I think what he's done here, he's done an incredible job of going into some of those areas, whether it's legal, whether it's scientific, constitutional. Those are the three areas. So check it out. It's called Fall from Grace, Dr. Lawrence Gelman. And the website is talkbackonline.com, talkbackonline.com. And the book, it's big. Look how big it is. I'll hold it up to you. It's a very big book, and called The Fall from Grace. All right, thanks. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.